Hi, I'm your host, Dina Hall, and today you're joining us here on Oakland Is with the Jazz Poetry Ensemble, UpSurge. Thank you so much for joining us. I have Raymond Nat Turner and Ziggy Lowenberg. Welcome.
Thank you.
Dina, thank you.
What does UpSurge mean?
Wow, what does it mean?
Yeah.
Well, it's an ensemble of poets and instrumentalists, and I say by any music necessary, but primarily our musical bent has been jazz.
By jazz, okay. You said by any music necessary. I like that. What does that really mean?
Well, what that means to me is that coming out of the African American tradition, there weren't these strict categories like you see now in record stores or online. You would have like let's say we had Zena's iPod. It would have Aretha. It would have Ray Charles. It would have John Coltrane.
Okay.
Duke Ellington. Leontine Price, Paul Robeson. So that's what I mean.
Oh,
so
okay.
we will draw from any of those, plus other traditions like klezmer, calypso, whatever.
Oh, wow. So it's like a mesh of genres.
Yes.
Oh, I
exactly.
love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So it's like a lot of flavors that are brought to a simmer.
That's right.
Is that, yeah?
That's what we try to do.
I love it.
And one of the origins for the word UpSurge Raymond chose has a really good punch to it and a political thrust. And a lot of what we do has a political, progressive, radical, revolutionary bent to it too. So it has that punch. And getting people stimulated and involved and engaged in a positive way.
Okay. So who primarily writes the lyrics? Is it a combination or?
Well, we both Ziggy and myself do. And one thing that I'm laughing because there's a question of from the page and to the stage.
From the page and to the stage.
Yeah, because like you have to write and you have to revise and edit and keep trying to hone your writing. Then once you get it to a certain point, then it's ready to test it. That's all you're doing is getting out on stage and testing it. And so why I laughed is because I wrote this piece called Army of Artists, and one of my friends said, "Oh wow, Ziggy, that was really great piece by Ziggy," and because she's part of it.
Okay.
But she made it her own and in a good way, and so that's part of what's involved is like the writing and then the performance of it, if you will.
I see.
Like she writes things and I am part of them, and I write things and she's part of them, or then we do our own solo things as well.
I see. But you founded the ensemble.
Yes, I did.
And you did that in
1990.
1990.
Here in Berkeley, California, a few blocks from here.
Okay. And what caused you to do that? Something usually compels someone to do something.
Yeah. Well, a number of years ago, I had a gig at Howard University. I was invited to participate in I think it was more like a festival that they had there. And really some great artists were on the program, like Sonia Sanchez, Mary Baraka, Nina Simone, Archie Shepp, just Donald Byrd, on and on and on. And I saw this performance by this poet from out of New York by the name of Larry Neal.
Yes.
And he had a bassist and a trumpeter with him.
Okay.
And it just really grabbed me. I said, that's what I want to do.
Oh,
I said, that's what I want to do. And then I saw Mary Baraka do a piece, and I just liked the energy. And so I said, yeah, this is me.
Wonderful. And then Ziggy, you came on board sometime later, and
Yeah, I started out, I was also doing visual art at the time when Raymond and I met, and but I would always keep journals and I'd write poetry. It was more personal, private poetry, and one particular collaborative event that happened in San Francisco in the early 90s, Spread Love, we went down to the rehearsals together. And Raymond said, you know that poem you wrote for me and you gave it to me, maybe you could do it. And I had done a little bit of acting in college and performance work and some video work before that. But he said, why don't we combine a piece that I wrote, it would go good, with a piece that piece that you wrote if you feel like it. And we tested it out in rehearsal and I got the bug. So after that, he invited me up as a guest poet at different events and readings. And we started working together, and then more or less, I guess it was about 1996 when we really decided to collaborate in terms of joining forces to take UpSurge to the next level. So after that, we produced CDs together, and we really did some more work together and conceived different projects together.
I see. I see. In doing my research for today's show, I see that you have an arsenal, I guess you could say, of history and a lot of appearances, and you bring a lot to the table. So much so that I understood in 2010 you were honored for your 20th year anniversary by the city of Berkeley.
Is
that correct?
That's correct.
And I'd like to read this one quote from one of the proclamations, and it actually read, in honor of the 20th anniversary of UpSurge, UpSurge Jazz Poetry Ensemble, founded in 1990 by Raymond Nat Turner, has been instrumental in rekindling the tradition of performing poetry with jazz which strikes spiritual, emotional, and intellectual chords within us all. That's pretty powerful. That's pretty powerful. So you mentioned that you have some legs or some touch into the political field, right? Into the political arena. Speak to that if you could.
Okay, one thing that it really touches me very deeply. I'm glad you asked the question, and thank you for asking it. In 2001, we were called on by, gosh, I think one person was our then council member, because we were living in Oakland at the time, Nancy Nadell, and others, to open a rally that was in support of and actually defense of our Congressperson Barbara Lee, who was receiving death threats and all kinds of nonsensical attacks that were, visited upon her because she had voted against giving carte blanche to go to war to attack Afghanistan in 2001 following the attacks in New York City.
I remember.
And so they had a rally for her at Frank Ogawa or / Oscar Grant Plaza in Oakland, and they called on us to open that rally. And it's very significant in that it wasn't just opening any kind of rally. She was actually guarded by these men who, with the earplugs in their ear, and all of her guards were African American, which was very interesting. And I remember Ziggy saw a window that was open on a 14th and Broadway, and they were very interested in that window, and so they went and found where that window was, and they closed. That's how serious it was.
Really
and so
tense.
It was a lot of. It was very tense, and when bullets start flying, they don't have names on them. But we opened the rally, and we introduced this thing that I had written called Operation Homefront, or OH, and the people in the audience loved it. Because what Congresswoman Lee had done at that point was represent her district, District 9, which is very ardently anti-war, very progressive. And so she did her job. And so the people came out in thousands to support her. And I remember there was a bumper sticker that said, Barbara Lee, speaks for me at that particular time. And so we were very honored to open that rally in 2001. And then fast forward to 2003,
Yes.
the U.S. is going to attack Iraq. And so
Yes.
we were called upon to open a rally at Mosswood Park
Yes.
from a flatbed truck. So that's
Wow.
just, you know, the
gist of that. I see.
that's part of what we do.
Wow. Okay. So, can you briefly tell me about the influences that you've received from New York City by living in New York City?
Oh, wow. Well, my roots are in New York, so it's like coming back home in another way, although I did spend a good chunk of time in the Bay Area and was informed by that. But going back to New York for this period, I call it the New York City Living Project. And I'm exposed to, personally, all kinds of very, very top shelf art in all the disciplines that you get to enjoy at a very either free or affordable way. Most evenings or most daytimes, there's places to go. And I really enjoy seeing other disciplines that inform my writing as well. So I'll go to see dance and Alvin Ailey and New York City Ballet.
Oh,
and
I love it.
it's just all happening right there. And then there's rehearsals, and then there's the New York Public Library, Performing Arts Library, which has all these resources that are available to take out for free. And I'm just considering that my personal graduate school. So
Okay.
it's tuition-free graduate school for me to study. And there's teachers there that I study with as well, voice. And so I have teachers here and I have teachers there. But right now I'm in a focused period of study.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, we have a few more moments, and I want to get some more nuggets out of you before you leave here. I wanted to know what are some of the things that your time in the Bay Area, what are some of the things that you've done here, or that will be coming up? Anything?
That's a good question. Well, I think the thing that we can be proudest of, perhaps, is that we produced 2 CDs that received national airplay.
Yes.
And one was nominated for Independent Music Award. The first CD called All Hands on Deck was nominated for Independent Music Award by the Association for Independent Music. And we got to go back to Cleveland and participate in this ceremony and all this kind of stuff, and visit the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And so that was pretty incredible. Then producing a second CD, and then the collaborations that we've had. And I think one big highlight for me was appearing at the Monterey Jazz Festival.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that, you know.
And you, Ziggy?
Yeah.
I think jazz festivals here, the Vallejo Jazz Festival was a turning point for us. KCSM Jazz on the Hill. Also really getting exposed and having the opportunity to learn and train to be on media. So both cable TV here, BCM, Berkeley Community Media, KPFA. Doug Edwards was a real mentor of ours, who was a jazz programmer. And we really learned our media chops, and we built a fan base and a community that supports us, and we carry them with us wherever we go.
Wonderful. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
I'm again Zena Hall at Oakland Is, and you can look at us each Saturday at 11:30 a.m. on Channel 32, Comcast locally. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Welcome back. And now we have Gregory Yu, who is the inventor of Letter Jam, and I'm excited to find out more about the product here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Great, I'm glad to be here.
Wonderful. So why are you interested in literacy?
Literacy is a nice word for the educators, but I look at literacy like health. Everybody's interested in health. How do we improve health? And I like to go back to my roots because I think we all can remember our first grade teacher.
Yes.
We have those deep, precious, sometimes painful memories in first grade.
Yeah.
I grew up in Detroit.
Okay.
I was educated in Michigan, did a whole professional career in New York, Silicon Valley. But I discovered about 10 years ago, my heart is still with kids.
Okay.
Maybe I should have been a teacher. Maybe that would have been a bad idea. But I feel that every child has huge potential.
Okay.
Not just to say, follow your dreams and be a sports star or a movie star, but build from something as basic as letters and words.
Okay.
And once you have letters and words, then you can move to your next level. Not something where someone sets an artificial target, but you begin to discover and read on your own because something percolates your interest.
Oh, I love that. Percolates. I love that. And you strike a meaningful point for even me, and I'm sure our listeners as well, because the developmental years for a child, you say that it's by the third grade that there's a milestone in terms of learning?
Well, sadly, it's even earlier than
Oh,
that.
okay. All right.
Because they've done some studies where children in the pre-K years have so many books at home. They haven't even been to kindergarten. Some families have 5,000 or more books at home.
Wow.
And they're hearing 25,000 words a day from their parents or siblings. But other families have very few books at home.
Okay.
No one's talking to them because they're busy playing video games or getting online, what have you. So even before kindergarten, a lot of kids are at a disadvantage. But the studies have shown that by third grade, it's like an on-off switch, especially for boys.
Okay.
They decide whether they want to read or not. And if they've decided, I'm not going to read anymore, it's a huge, long, lifetime battle to get them up to basic reading level. And that, of course, leads to education in the future and jobs and all those good things that happen when you have an education.
And that's what caused you to go into this invention here?
Yeah, I have a creative, I will call it a restless mind. And we can't stop thinking, and some people, even when they go to sleep, they can't stop thinking.
Yes.
They have dreams and nightmares. But I'm glad that my dream was not how to get rich. It was, I care about these kids. And in society, a lot of things are polarized, even like charter schools versus public schools.
Yes.
I'm not into that. I'm going to start, and I have started, the very basic level is how do we get kids mixing it up with letters and words and building up something. So we have developed, and I've worked with a couple of people to design and develop Letter Jam Fun Pack.
Yes.
And it's in a tube like a baton, so you can even toss it back and forth. It may float in the water. I don't know. I should test it out. But it's child-proof pretty much, and we have a whole bunch of games and activities. One of the amazing things I think is unique for Letter Jam is it's not just another board game, let's shuffle the letters and deal them, but we have a special word tool called WordCinch.
Yes.
And it's actually tied in with the web. You go to letterjam.com and you click on WordCinch, and it's totally free. And you can basically punch in a few letters and create a word chain, and then hit search, and then all of a sudden, all of these words will pop out that contain those several letters. So I'm going to quiz you.
Oh dear.
There's no right or wrong answer, but
All right.
let me ask you, how many English words contain ESC, whether at the beginning, the middle, or the end?
Is that in a string?
Yeah, ESC. Don't mix it around, just how many words out there? Like escape.
Right.
I'd like to escape this interview because I'm getting nervous.
No. I'd say 11.
11, okay.
Maybe.
Inescapable, escapade.
Escalate.
Escalate, that's a good one.
Oh, I did one. Yay.
Okay. But WordCinch actually generates 597 words.
Stars. Oh, my stars.
And-
I failed. No,
No.
no, actually,
It was your
I'm
best.
intrigued. I love it. I love it.
So even a third grader can punch in a few letters and say maybe there's only 2 or 3 words.
Yes.
But there's adolescence, there's acquiesce,
Oh, yes.
there's be scouring, be scorched. Some of these I don't even know. So this is the beauty of using the human mind and emotion to discover something that wasn't out there. So it's not a right or wrong answer. The child, even the adult, begins to think and say, I'd like to figure this out. So our freestyle game is one where it's heavily interactive, social. And when I've demoed freestyle many times, frequently people are just laughing after a few minutes.
Wonderful.
So it's not Scrabble or chess at all. And I'll just say no more because I want to share more about literacy and my dream to see this happen.
Okay, so we have about 30 seconds left, so if we could get more information in terms of where we can go find more about the product.
Well, letterjam.com has a video how you play freestyle, but I want to go to the dream. Of course, I'd like to sell games, and that will be down the road, but I want to help all people, no matter what their background, what continent they live in, how to access letters, learn English, even foreign languages, and reach the most marginalized in this world. Because a lot of people have those fancy college prep tools and programs, but I want to help the marginalized, those who don't have a fighting shot, and give them something as simple and as inexpensive as LetterJam, and let them and their families take off.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I'm looking forward to seeing more of the product around, and I know this is not a marketing spiel. I know that. But thank you so much for joining us here this afternoon on Oakland Is. Again, you can view some of our past and current files by going to oaklandistv.com or visiting us on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome back to our last segment of Oakland Is. Today, we're joined by CEO of the Social Media Exchange, Philip Vaden, also known as Kojo.
Yes.
Welcome.
Well, thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to meet you.
It's a pleasure to be here also.
Wonderful. So I'd like to jump in and find out, what is social media?
Well, I'm pretty sure you've heard of Facebook,
Yes.
Twitter, YouTube, and it all began with a item called MySpace, as far as I know.
Oh, I remember that.
That was back in the day.
Okay.
Right. So that was, as far as I know, the beginning of it.
Okay.
And social media now is taking over the world. It's just so prevalent in our lives that we have to make the most of it and use it. So I started about 10 years ago in the social media, and I've been steadfast at it ever since, and learning more and more and more every day.
Okay. So when you developed the exchange, what did that entail?
Well, it got started as a necessity, if you will.
Okay.
You know, communication is at a bare minimum. I started out at a cable TV show, and it was so restrictive that I just felt like I was just being choked. So I went out and started investigating how I could broaden my audience and my horizon. And lo and behold, I discovered something called YouTube.
Okay.
And so I started to use that as a platform, and it has developed over the years now to where it will accompany a channel. You can have your own subscribers. You can, it's just wonderful.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just wonderful.
I love it. Yeah. I'm very familiar with YouTube. Yeah, I surf it a lot. I love it.
Yes.
So, so what do you actually do with social media? And you said you started about 10 years ago?
Yeah, about 10 years ago, it started out as a platform for television shows, social justice programs and the like. But then I started to train children with it. And it was quite an awakening, and that the children know more than I do about social media. And it's just a beautiful thing to watch. I guess about 7 years ago, I was at a seminar, and the young man speaking has made millions doing social media. And he asked a question. He says, how many people in here have the degree?
Yeah.
Well, 3/4 of the room raised their hand. And he says, how many people have jobs? And hands went down. He says, what's wrong? They're not hiring in this area? And everybody says, no. He says, wrong. They're not hiring you.
Oh, wow.
They're hiring Tamika and JoJo. Because they know how to tweet, they know how to text, they know how to surf, they know how to do the whole thing with social media. This is their life, basically. So you don't have to be retrained.
I see.
So the paradigms have shifted. And so I dove in and I took my expertise in film and television. And so I started training children how to make movies with social media tools, telephones, and the like.
Oh, wow.
So we now do live broadcasting. Children make their own websites, and in essence, they have their own television show.
Amazing.
So it was the start of it. So now we're growing now, and we now have young people writing movies. And
I'm impressed. I love it.
I just have to
love
tell
the
you,
concept.
These children are genius. I had a student, I'm teaching at a Second Chance High School, for instance.
Okay.
A student comes in after a week of class, and so I said, her name was Kaya. I said, you have 20 minutes to write a movie script, or you out of here. Well, the class ended. Next day, Kaya showed up with a 32-page script.
You're kidding.
Fantastic. So.
Wow. I love it.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. So how can we use the social media to help some of our social issues?
Well, you saw an example of it a couple years ago.
Yes.
Over in the Middle East.
Okay.
The social media changed the whole, whoever had that master plan to do whatever they were going to do, the social media changed it.
Okay.
And so as we see as a result, some governments toppled, some bad guys were run out, and you see social justice everywhere. We had about 300,000 people come to Detroit 3 years ago for a social forum, all because of social media.
Wow, I love it.
And things are just getting better and better.
Getting better and better. Oh my goodness, we're already running out of time, and I could sit here all afternoon and discuss this because I'm totally interested in this. I love it, I love it.
Yes.
But how can our viewers find out more about you and what you're doing?
You can go to my YouTube channel, which is Philip, with one L, Philip Vaden, that's V-A-D-E-N.
Okay.
And you can see hours and hours of footage.
Wonderful.
You can also email me at smxdetroit
Yes.
@gmail.com, or you can go to smxdetroit.com.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Oakland Is. I'm your host, Zena Hall, and again, take a look at us on YouTube, one of the other avenues of social media. Take care.
Okay.